Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. In this video, I invited good friend of mine, Grammy Award-winning mixing engineer, Irko, who's worked with so many talented artists. Jay-Z, Pitbull, Mac Miller, Snoop Dogg, Sia, the Portugal the Man. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so throughout our discussion in this video, we talk about numerous things about his journey to getting to where he's gotten right now and how he came across working with some of the big projects. And also, what are the advantages to working in a professional recording studio and his journey in building his own recording studio? And what are some of the disadvantages of working in that environment? So I hope that you can pick up a couple things that inspire you and encourage you to take your next step with your music production. So without further ado, let's get started. So, Irko, thank you so much for jumping on board. I'm super excited to just, let my audience take a sneak peek into your life and just, man, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. Just go ahead, introduce yourself to everyone. Let them know who you are, what you've done. And and if you want to, long walks on the beach, things that you like and stuff like that. No, but go ahead, introduce us to the audience, to yourself.
Ill Factor, my man. Thank you so much for having me. We have a lot in common. There's a lot of things that we can talk about with Jimmy and stuff like that that kind of, got our conversation going when we met at NAMM last year, right?
Yeah, that's when we met.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I mean, I'm trying to think if I should go the, 3 minutes version, the 30 seconds version, or the 2 hours version of this.
Go the 4-day version.
Yeah.
In a galaxy far away. You could just start with that. Yeah, man.
Okay.
It's funny because when you do a lot of these things, you always, okay, which version do I go with?
Yeah.
And you tell it like 500 times, and there's always you sneak something in that you didn't do. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, man.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. Okay, so since we kind of touched on Jimmy, let's touch on that. So imagine Irko in Venice, Italy, 1990, no, maybe 2000. So 20 years ago. Yeah. So no hair, no bow ties. It was a different world then, right? So I'm on gear sluts trying to understand how the hell these vocals are being tracked and mixed on these Timberlake records. So of course I find Jimmy on Gear Sluts, and I don't remember exactly how it went. I think I told you this story before, but I found his email address on the thing, and so I totally emailed him, and I was like, "Hey man, what can you tell me like a couple pointers about the recording chain and or what you're using?" And he was like, straight up, 1176 and the 1073 for the preamps. That's it. Like those little, I think I remember it being like a one-liner kind of situation.
That's it. That's Jimmy in a nutshell, man. And that's working with him. That's my vocal chain. That's because I was
There you go.
That's my mentor. That's
There you go.
So yeah, go ahead.
There you go. So so this flashback like 20 years ago of me in this on this little dingy computer in Italy, trying to reach out to these, people that were so distant geographically, but even, like the level at which I was, professionally speaking, was maybe low to medium in Italy's terms, which compared to the US, it's like you're basically engineering for your neighbor. That's like, that's the equivalent. Because, the music business over there is so little. Naturally, it's a small country. We don't export anywhere. So I guess we can start with that. But this kind of like sets the tone of my upbringing and how I came up in the music industry as, somebody from such a distant kind of place, culturally, language speaking and musically, and the whole thing was such a completely different thing, right? But even then, the goal was always to come to America and do bigger records that I could have ever done in Italy, even if I was working with the biggest celebrities over there, right? And that's kind of how it happened. I kind of like set out this incredible goal that only a 20-something can say, oh, you know what? I'm gonna just do that. Because why not, right? What's the problem? What's the issue?
Take over the world, one fader at a time. Why not?
Right? So of course I started to establish a lot of relationships and plant a lot of seeds where in all of these situations I was called into, I was trying to give more value that I was actually being either compensated for or even called in the first place to take care of, right? And this extra mile thinking and going about my business, and really just me as a person, that's how I naturally am, eventually kind of set me in a direction in which in 2006 I get to New York City, and I'm like starting to grow this career and build something in a city with 9 million people or 8 million people, however many it is, literally knowing no one and showing up with a bag of clothes, like, hello, I'm here now. What?
Glad you showed up with a bag of clothes, though. That helps for a lot of.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
wow. So you go to New York, bag of clothes. What happened?
yeah. And it's like, okay, so now what? So I started moving, trying to, get on my internet hustle and, trying to connect with people. And that's kind of how it happened, and I think, again, our stories are similar in that sense of, getting connected with one person that eventually led you to another opportunity. Like when you were saying in your interviews, I was working with Jimmy, but then he was like, oh, I'm mixing here, you need to take care of the recording with this, and the
Yeah.
recording led to the production and so forth, right? And it's all like little steps that kind of connect and eventually take you um, to an outcome that, if you set out to do only that little piece 5 years later, there was no way to do it. It's just a natural progression of things.
I think that's really just to pause there, because I think that's such a golden thing to grasp. I think with the ability to instantly grab on to so many things right now, I think this generation, even ourselves included, I mean, technology's allowed so many people to instantly have access to so many different types of platforms,
Yeah.
tools, and things instantly. Where like you and I, we came from a part where it wasn't instantly given, like we had to gradually get there. And so I think there's a disillusionment at first when people are like, well, if being able to get a DAW or being able to make beats and music on my phone and put it out there, and if I can do that so easily, why isn't the success that comes from all that naturally coming that easy as well? And I
Right.
think what we have to, bridge the gap from expectation to reality is understanding the truth is, man, the overnight success takes about 15 years. It takes, not giving that specific number, but yeah, we're products of the dedication and hard work that we put into. When opportunity meets that moment, we can step up. And man, and honestly, there was so much on I can speak for myself, but just so much grace was given, more than I deserve. Like I was just, I was blessed with so many opportunities to be a part of. But yeah, man.
I
But
feel the same way.
yeah,
Same way.
yeah, right. And but it didn't just say, oh, well, this kind of fell on our lap, let's just take it. No, we're like, and I love what you said earlier. It's like, how can I deliver extra? How can I over deliver and under promise? How can I do that? I think that's a
Yeah.
big thing to take away,
Yeah.
even just from the introduction of how you're arriving at what you're at. Yeah. So that's
Totally.
to mix, and you're focusing, your main focus thing is making. I love these memes that you've been putting out. Like this is your mix before I mix it, and it's just like a little tomato, and then
A little tomato.
it's like a little tomato, and this is your mix after I mix it, and it's like this big pasta dish, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. So I love so yeah, you became this amazing mixing engineer.
Yeah.
What are some of the projects you've had the pleasure of working on?
Yeah. So the right word is that I became a great mixing engineer, because when I started, I was doing everything. I was putting together musicians, producing, recording, editing, tuning, placing the records at the labels. I was doing everything, right? Because I was coming from a very tiny market where I had to do that in order to survive, right? And then slowly, as I moved to bigger markets and the accolades started to be a little bigger and the plaques started to appear on the walls and stuff like that, I stopped doing things I felt like it wasn't my best to do. And so eventually, yeah, I stopped producing, I stopped DJing, I stopped doing all of these things. And 20 years later now, it's all mixing. I rarely record. Sometimes I do, but it's rare. And so yes, I'm focused on mixing, and that's really my calling. And I feel like I often say that mixing feels like it has been created for my personality, because I'm like right in that between that nerdy techie thing, but then also being an artist and feel the energy of music and stuff like that. And I was very, very blessed to be, part of projects that were very good with people that I grew up listening to, like Snoop Dogg, like Kanye West, like Jay-Z, all of these people, and also newer artists as well. That Sia, Mac Miller, 21 Savage, Swiss Beats, all of these people. I mean, my discography is big, and it pretty much speaks on itself on the music I grew up listening to. I'm like a boom bap guy, so if you go look at my credits, it's all a bunch of hip hop people.
I think that's really important too, because you love that music. I mean, yeah, man, boom bap is like, grew up on Wu-Tang, and I just grew up on, like MF Doom and stuff. But yeah, you loved it, and it just naturally pours out. I think, right? Like, it does help when you're like, man, I could mix polka because, hey, that'll keep some of the lights on. I don't know who's polka now. I don't know. But I'm saying, hey, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what kind of gets the fire going for me. So yeah. That's kind of cool that you continued.
Yeah, and those decades of listening and DJing and trying to be, trying to move on the drum machines like Dre would, or like Trackmasters or Timberlake, or all of those guys, totally inform my DNA of the sonics that I'm after. So yes, maybe most definitely the mixing style of 2020 is different from that of 2010 and of 2000, right? So because things are obviously constantly evolve. But the DNA, the building blocks of the ratios, and how the low end is supposed to be in relationship to the mids and the highs, all of those things are steady embedded in the sound and the aesthetic of urban music.
Okay, I want to stay there for a second, because that's huge. You basically have kind of paved a way to, like, the light bulbs are coming on. I hope the light bulbs are coming on for some of you guys who are watching, because what we're saying is, you sort of kind of stumbled on realizing your sound, even as a mixing engineer, which is really hard to come to grasp with. It's like, how does a mixing engineer have a sound when they're really mixing other people's music? Well, working with Jimmy for a long time, I started to realize, yeah, I know why they come to him. I get it, because he was just immersed in, he's worked on stuff from like Aretha Franklin to Foreigner, and then you go all the way to Ginuwine, Missy Elliott, and Timberland, and all these things, and you're like, right, just like you mentioned, it's been engraved, like, because you were immersed in that, you were influenced by that music. It already kind of set you in the direction of like, well, this is how I want to approach this mix. I like listening to boom bap, low end, heavy type music. I want to put that into these mixes. And right, does that make sense? And then I guess what starts to happen is you start to create mixes that replicate that sound, that vibe, and that feel enough where people take note. Hey, your mixes sound like this, and that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to go for you for that. Does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah, most definitely.
Like mixing engineers, how they come across their sound.
Yeah. It's most definitely about the perception and the aesthetic and the taste of the mixer. We all use the same tools, right? Even if I was to do the famous polka record, we're still using the same EQ, same compressors, same concepts, but the aesthetic and what we do with it is completely different. In my household, there's an ongoing joke between if I'm stacking the dishes in the dishwasher or if my girl does it, and it's completely different. It's the same freaking dishes, it's the same dishwasher, right? But how I do it is so much better, but don't tell that.
We'll just be our secret. Yeah, dishes. Anyways, that's a conversation for a whole nother. Yeah, I'm in a household with like, it's my wife and I, we've got 3 boys.
And 3 kids, yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, dishes is the plague, because anyways, we digress. That's awesome, man. So you've gotten to this journey. This is a really cool way. So you're mixing all these albums here. That means that you've probably traveled around a lot of different studios, right? And that's taken you to different locations, different sonics, different relationships, and things like that. talked about what are some of the favorite studios that you've worked in and why.
Yeah, in 15 plus years of freelancing around America, I've been to so many studios. It's pretty crazy. New York, Dallas, Miami, even, and of course LA for the longest now. And yeah, the ability of being in these historic places every day, it's amazing. Of course, you get to touch the same buttons that have been touched for doing the Biggie record or the Michael Jackson record or whatever the case may be, right? It's amazing. I gotta say that one of the highest moments for me was when I first got to New York, and this is 15 plus years ago, and I got to work at Sony Recording Studios, which at the time, or at least for me, in my experience, it was like heaven on earth, like literally like a slice of heaven right there. I remember walking in and seeing these incredible facilities with big studios back to back next to one another on different floors in this skyscraper
That
in New York
studio
City,
blew
right?
me away, man. When I walked in there, I was like, wow. Yeah,
Right?
I was like, I'm not worthy. I was blown away. I was like, this is
Yeah.
great. And I think that was actually one of the first times I actually flew out to New York. Somebody flew me out to work and produce on a project, and I get thrown into that, and I'm like, oh, I'm like the one
Yeah.
tear. This is glorious. Anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead. So
Yeah. And imagine that coming from a little country where there was no SSLs, there was no big studios. Like imagine like the jump, it really felt so surreal. Like already being in New York City, if you're coming from a little town, wherever it is, it's already surreal, right?
yeah.
And imagine that, like I was walking through the hallways and there were, Destiny's Child over there. Rough Riders were in that room. Noriega was in the other room. I was like, wait, what? Like these people are here. So
Uh,
that was most definitely incredible. But of course, then kind of that gets naturalized as that becomes your day to day. Even just walking, I remember I worked and I helped Tony Maserati in one of these sessions at Sony, and then after we were done, we just kind of left and went home. And we were walking on the sidewalk. I was like, dude, I'm like walking next to Tony freaking Maserati. What? Like, that was it was crazy. It was just weird.
that's awesome.
Um, yeah, but and then the other thing that's the huge advantage of working in these incredible facilities is that you have all the gear that you can possibly think of,
Mm.
from microphones that are worth as much as yourself to incredible consoles, the gear for days, and then you also learn how a lot of these things are beat up and don't work and stuff like that. So I got the whole experience of living in recording studios for 20 plus years.
That's amazing because as like we mentioned earlier, technology and the way it's advancing so much and the norm of just, hey, you know what? I'm setting up shop in my bedroom. I mean, we've
Yeah,
got some of the biggest records of last year made by two people cranking
yeah,
out songs in their bedroom. I mean, look at a
yeah,
Billie Eilish and things like that. And more people realizing, hey, that's and maybe people watching this are like, okay, that's nice, good for you. I won't probably be able to travel all over the world to visit different studios. Um, so yeah, you're now moving towards building your own studio, right? Because I think that's at the core. Everybody wants to have a place to call their own, a place they can work at. So I want to come back to why was the decision, if you were able to access so many of these places and work out of these studios, why build your own? And then walk us through, not just the why, but yeah, what are you doing?
yeah, yeah.
On the inside? No, so why? Yeah,
So being in these amazing situations, amazing studios every day is incredible, obviously. But there's also downsides to that. The number one thing will be, of course, cost, which is passed down to my clients ultimately. And as budgets shrink, and with COVID and everything, there's no live shows right now and everything. It's so much better for to have a more skinny operation, more fluid, quicker, better, whatever the case may be, right? And one of those aspects of being in big studios is that ultimately I don't own those places, and most of the big studios are also not owned or operated by engineers. They're owned by, a real estate company or something, and they don't really care about the music business per se, or not even the business, but the actual music. And so the ability of having one of us opening up a place to be used by one of us is a completely different mindset that puts the community of the Los Angeles recording community in such a better place. And not only LA actually, but anyone that's traveling from outside of LA, to be able to have a place where they can do a lot more things that big studios I kind of support, but it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Case in point, workshops, events, things like, hey, Irko, I have this budget to do a session. Can I still do it? That kind of situation. Now, of course, real estate and construction, generally speaking, especially in LA, is extremely expensive. So I understand why a lot of these studios are, incredible, they have incredible hourly rates. But on the other end of that, I understand that in order for me to assist and give, pay forward to the next Irko, the next the next whoever it is, to do sessions, whether that's production, recording, mixing, it doesn't really matter. But give the ability to have someone do that, it's so important for me in 2020. I remember that when I first came to America, and when I came to LA, I needed a place to live, I needed a place to work, I needed a way to move between the two, and I had limited budget, so I needed to make sure that I could work all this and make it happen, right? So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm offering a place where people can live and work. They can come in from out of town and have a guest room where they can work out of. They don't have to deal with the LA traffic, all of that stuff for reasonable amount of money. The reasonable word, of course, is a little vague. I haven't finished doing the thing, so I don't know how much this is going to cost, but the goal is to have the rates for the studios to be at least half of that of regular places that are around me that have similar experience, similar gear, similar construction and things like that. And the reason for that is I'm not here to make money. I'm here to make it work for everybody. And I want to accumulate more plaques on the walls for sessions that have happened in the studio that I did not do. So that's my goal.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you're right now currently actually, you've documented the whole process, right? And you're kind of giving everybody a sneak peek into everything from concept. And so what are you doing with that? Walk us through. You've even like your journey to America. Just show us the whole, like, you're documenting everything, which I think is super cool. So tell us a little bit about that.
Every Wednesday I put out a new episode on my YouTube channel, and I figure since I'm building the thing from ground up, literally from ground up, it would be such a great opportunity for me to show how a real studio is being built from ground up. And I figured I should start this even before the actual construction, with all the decisions about the acoustics and the space and naming the rooms and the different renderings and the speaker choices and all of these things, right? I've accumulated a lot of experience, a lot of things that I knew for sure I did not want, and also a lot of things that I did want for the new studio to facilitate whoever's using it. So I figured, let's capture everything. Let's, this is right now, we're at episode, like 5 or 6 or something like that. But these episodes are now 2 years old because the process of the entire thing has been so long. Because, build it, like, imagine this. I had to find a lot, like a place where to put this. Second, I had to put together a team, an acoustician, an architect, the engineering team to make the building actually exist and then function acoustically the way we want it, right? Then it was drawings, permits, and go through the city. That was a headache.
Oh, gosh.
That was 2 years. And then after that, yes. And then after that, it was the beginning of it. And, with any construction thing, before you start, adding to the space, you need to remove. So imagine trucks and trucks of dirt coming in and, excavation and stuff. All of this will be shown to you. And I can't wait to share all that, because that's when the real action happens. And so imagine all of that, then to put the structure of the studio, which is all concrete and block walls. So there's no wood construction. Most buildings in LA are made in wood. All the studio parts are solid masonry, like 80,000 pounds of stuff is there sitting to hold this audio in place, right? Then of course there's the residential piece, which is built regular, like, like a regular apartment, like it would. But imagine that. So I was like, I need to show this because first of all, it's entertaining. I can take you guys through the entire process. And also to kind of give the knowledge of how these things are done. Not that this is a tutorial or anything. It's more like a documentary kind of thing that I'm taking you along. So yeah, so and while doing all of that, I'm showing my bow ties. I'm showing you how I handle car tests when I listen to mixes in the car and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm trying to make it fun.
And that's awesome, man. Yeah, it sounds riveting, especially having to deal with all the permits and stuff. It's crazy because like I said earlier, the way that we're at right now with technology, being able to even produce and make music off of your phone and just a laptop and then call it a day. One would even ask, "Oh, that's good for you, Irko. Nice, good for you. Why on earth would anyone go through the hassle of building a studio?" I know you mentioned why you're doing. That's the why. You wanted to create an environment, but how does it make so bringing this home to the person, the artist, the music producer who's at home? I mean, like, okay, that's great. And oftentimes, even me, myself, when I would look at studio builds or, even this room that I'm working out of, when I try to, put things together, I know the reality of, I know what, I know what's, I know what it's going to cost to get this thing right. I don't want to do that. And we also know the reality of this is all I need to make things happen, which I'm a big, that's what I preach from the mountaintops. Don't overthink it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You don't need much to make much. So I kind of want to bring this all the way around. So how does this impact the average musician, artist, music producer who won't have the opportunity to build a studio? What can we learn from the aspects? Like, how does this impact them?
Yeah.
What comes to your mind?
So there's different situations for different spaces and things, right? Imagine this: we can all cook at home, we all have kitchens at home, but there's also restaurants, and there's a situation for which doing a home cooked meal is perfect, and there's other situation where going to the restaurant is the best bet, right? So that's kind of like my thinking of that. Yeah, we all can record on a laptop or the phone, iPad, whatever the case may be, wherever we are, and that's perfect. And in fact, all of my clients have recording studios at home. They all do, and that's a perfect creative environment to express yourself, do your writing, do your production, everything. That has a space and a time and a moment and a reason to exist. And even now with all the digital advantages that we have, it's fantastic. People can make music however the hell they want, literally. Yeah. That being said, a recording studio still has a place in this world, namely for my main business, which is mixing. Of course, in order to get that music that has been created and recorded wherever, it still requires a person with expertise to make it into the sonic landscape that it will eventually be able to compete with everything else on the radio. And for that, we do need the proper acoustics and a person to run, the mixing in an environment that's designed specifically for that, right? So that's kind of where the two worlds meet. Yes, you can create everything you're doing at home, but then the next step to bring this material up to platinum standards is to be in a place like that to do it. And the bridge is exactly that. Like, I'm trying to make it so that these places can be used by anyone without $1 million budget. You can still do it. And I was very fortunate to have a successful career that allowed me to make a big investment into these walls, literally, and be able to have a place where people can do everything. Yet they can also record and produce and create in a studio like mine. Obviously, they don't need to do that. They can do it anywhere. Yeah. But I'm kind of like allowing all of these things to happen in a specific spot. So, for the average Joe that has a little, writing set up at home or in the bedroom where they're creating or whatever, they can get the best of both worlds. They can get the freedom of no hourly fees or nothing to create music in the bedroom at home, and be creative. And, maybe they are producing 30 records that are not going to do nothing or go anywhere, right? But that 31st record maybe is the one, And now that's when you're like, okay, maybe I should invest in proper mixing, or maybe even for whatever reason get to LA and record vocals there. Not that it's needed, but you could do that.
Yeah. No, and that's good. I definitely agree. Like there is a place for that. But I also want to encourage those watching that might have fallen into the trap of, because I'm not at the restaurant every day, my stuff isn't good enough. That's not
Yeah,
what
no.
we're saying, and we want to encourage you guys to realize that it's not, your music's identity is not rooted in the gear nor the environment. The music's identity is rooted in what you are crafting it to be. And so
100%.
does that make sense? So yeah, I know, because there's a lot of people who are part of my Beat Academy platform, in which we take time, and I'm mentoring them and walking them through that. And a lot of frustrations I come across, like, that one line, Irko, that everybody tells you, oh, it's not mixed yet. They play a demo, oh, it hasn't been mixed or mastered yet. But they go even deeper into saying, I just don't have, I'll just never be able to make great sounding music just because I don't have a studio or things like that. So
Right.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
There's a better way to think about those situations, and that is when you were in at an arena and 10,000 people are singing the song that's the biggest hit from the artist on the stage. None of those guys are singing the mix. None of those guys are singing the chords, or the kick drum that has been selected. They all are singing the song. The song is the number one thing, and obviously, a proper mixing thing can contribute to that, of course, but it's not the main factor. It's not the ill factor. It's the where it's at is always in the genius of the creation. So if we're talking about lyrics or whatever, it's how you're connecting to your audience. If we're talking about melody lines, is how catchy that is. If you're talking about the production, is what instrumentation has been chosen. Nobody cares about the microphone you use to record, Nobody cares about the levels at which you're printing the mix. Is it -14 or -6 LUFS? Who cares? Now, granted, all of these things do help, and I'm not saying they're not. I mean, I made a career out of it. Obviously, they do. But that's not where it's at. It's not, it's kind of like worrying about the paint job of the car to finish the race first. Yeah, the red, of course, is going to make the car faster. but you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's so good, Irko. I'm so glad you've dropped that gem, because yeah, that's the reality. Again, the fact that we can instantly grab a hold of so many tools, that everybody today has access to, so many DAWs, so many options, that we can then become so overwhelmed with the thought of, I think I need the next thing, or I think I need the new plugin, or the
right.
Just
And your platform helps. Your platforms help a lot. Is helping a lot with that, because even when you are getting the Ableton for the first time, double click, you're in front of it, there's like 40 buttons, 40 things, it's all gray. What the hell am I doing, right? So that's when a platform like yours helps a lot with taking somebody by the hand and showing them, okay, this is what this does. And the great thing about what you do is the way you explain things is very calm and matter of factual and simple and quick to understand. There's a lot of times there's like, these swirls around what this button does, but you're like, okay, this is what this does. You see, it's adding harmonics, whatever the case, right? And I think you're doing a great job with that because of this overload of information and things that are out right now. Like we were saying earlier, right? When I bought my first 1176, it took me 3 months to rack up the money. And then I had one channel on, one mono thing on, one time for one song, I had one, like literally one. So of course you will get to know the unit that you had just bought in and out, because then the second you have it, you're going to put it on everything every time you can. So you get to learn it, right? And it's not until 3 months later that you can buy the next thing and so forth. Nowadays, when you get plugins or bundles or VSTs or software entirely, it's like, okay, now you got 70 plugins. Whoa, like it's overwhelming. So that's why what you're doing is very, very necessary today.
Oh man, thank you, appreciate that. Well, dude, I mean, super excited about the studio build. I want to draw people's attention to that. Where can they go? Where can we do? I'm going to post actually the link below in our description where
Yep.
they just hit you up on your socials, Instagram, and definitely watch the YouTube. And here's what we want you guys to take away from this. Irko's awesome. Hit him up. You know, he's amazing at what he does. He's a ninja. And if you want, you know, if you need some bow ties in your life, let him introduce you to some of that. But also, just to see the whole process, I think you have a better appreciation when I see when I walk into like what we talked about, Sony Studios. When you see the grandeur of being in a studio and the electricity that comes into that, and when you see the whole process, it's not so that then you can go to the person next to you who doesn't know anything about studios and just be like, oh, I know how to probably do this. It's so that you can now benefit, like, wow, I know every detail that goes into a place. So like when you do go to the restaurant, you know there's a top chef there. You know that the meal you're getting is like 5-star, and you know that everything is going to cater to that. But it also gives you a better appreciation for, hey, you know what? I might not be in the greatest studio in the world, but I know that I can create music that I'm really, really happy with creating. And once again, not to discourage with the fact that you're not an environment or that you don't have the ability to create a studio. I think seeing the process will, for me, seeing that process appreciates a little bit more of, okay, cool, man. Like, I appreciate it more because I'm like, yeah, I don't want to go through that headache. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
a lot.
you know, it's like, that's cool. But yet then it's like, you know, you tend to really appreciate, like, hey, I think at the end of the day, like you said, the song and writing the song is at the forefront. And, you know, if you don't have a great song, it doesn't matter what recording studio you're going into. It's just, you're just mixing a bad song. So, yeah, man. So what are some other ways that people can get in contact with you and check you out and things like that? What's
Yeah, I'm all social media, so you can easily find me. The videos about the construction of the studio are live every Wednesday at 9 a.m. West Coast time, and every episode is about 3-4 minutes, so it's not that time consuming or anything. It's I keep it nice and short. So definitely tune into that, and then every other social media, you know, Instagram and you know, all of those. I'm at Irko Studio Beat everywhere, and yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I wanted to just kind of break the ice and just introduce you and talk about this specific thing about studio and studio environments.
Sure.
Love to have you on and maybe just talk about some of the nitty gritty about, you know, achieving some of that sonic fidelity, even in our bedroom studio. Like, how can we, even though we're not in your studio yet, how can we achieve some of the things we're desiring to achieve with our music? So if you guys would like to see that, maybe another session with Irko talking about maybe some of the top, you know, 10 things that you like to do to get a certain sound, let us know in the comment section below, and we would love to set that up.
Let's do it. And meanwhile, Ill Factor and I are going to work on an album where he plays trombone and I lay some hot 16 in Italian.
Yes, that's awesome. Dude, I did play trombone growing up. That was amazing.
I know that. That's why I'm saying that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be that. And that's for the polka album that we're gonna be creating, that you're gonna be mixing.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, man. Thanks so much.